Well, hey there. It's good to see you, or good to imagine you. Jonathan here. I just want to welcome you to this evening guided meditation and Dharma talk with moi. My name is Jonathan Foust. Before we launch into the meditation, just a few quick announcements. A big thank you to our producers, Glenn Harrison and Leo Gimo, for getting this out there. Also, I'd like to thank the mindful movement teachers and our mindful dialogue teachers as well. We have got a whole Monday night thing happening here. And if you'd like to catch the whole thing, it's 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can join Mindful Movement, led by three really, really great teachers, one at a time. And this is a chance just to bring your awareness into the body, release some deep-seated tension, kind of prepare yourself for meditation. And then afterward, after the talk, you can join Mindful Dialogue, led by Ray Manioki and Tara Cassidy. And this is a chance just to connect with like-minded people. You can share about the talk, share about your practice. It's a really wonderful thing. So please feel free to take part, and thank you to everyone who volunteers their time for that. As well, a thank you to the Insight Meditation Community of Washington for sponsoring this, and to my good friends at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington, which has been home of Monday night meditation for quite a while now. This talk is offered freely in the spirit of generosity. The teachings are considered priceless, so therefore there's no charge. I mean, some traditions charge. I just like ensuring that no one is denied access to these practices and to these teachings. It's a neurotic way to make a living. But if you feel inspired to support this whole process, the expense that goes into this, thank you so much. You can do that through PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, all these great ways of sharing here. You can find all that information, plus all the information for the links for Mindful Movement and Mindful Dialogue on my website, and also on my Facebook page. All my talks are recorded and available through my website, and mostly just to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. It's just one of the things here with going in quarantine is it's kind of forced us all internally, but also to a greater sense of interconnection. So to all those around the planet, thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing yourself so fully to your practice. We're going to talk a little bit more around anxiety and fear, and looking a little closer at the source. Well, what's the source of all this stuff? So before we do that, though, we're going to take some time for our meditation practice. Preparing the body is always helpful. We haven't done this one in a while. Just a really great way to kind of reset your spine. If you've been sitting for a really, really long time, there's a natural slump, and this helps to kind of realign a little bit. As you do this, there should be no pain at all. So you can make your hands into the hitchhiker position. Thumbs pointing up and then thumbs pointing back. Bring your fists so they're right about equal to your ears. Now, without any strain, open your elbows out to the side just so you feel engaged. Then you can close your eyes and begin to slow down your breath. Breathing in slow to the count of 4 or 5. And then exhaling slowly to the count of 4 or 5. And we'll begin to engage a little bit more fully. But first, you want to establish your breath long and slow and full and deep, just like you've done. And now actively engage your shoulder blades. Draw your shoulder blades close together and slightly down if that's possible. And if you want to engage a little more, draw your navel in toward your spine. And focus on your breath now. Breathe in full, slow, deep. Fill the upper lobes of the lungs as you breathe up under the collarbones. With each exhalation, if you like to take it out a little further, you can draw the navel in toward your spine, so you're just expelling all the stale air out of your lungs. Inhale, slow, full, and deep. Again, actively draw the shoulder blades close together. We're just going to do this for maybe 3 or 4 more breaths. It's about a 60 to 90 second process here, taking the slack out of the muscles that get chronically lengthened, lengthening the muscles that get chronically shortened across the front of the chest. Imagine you're breathing your heart forward. You can lift your chin just slightly if that feels good for you. One more full deep breath in. Hold the breath for a moment. Shoulder blades close together. Exhale, reach the arms up overhead. Stretch up to the left side, the right side. Let out any sounds. You're on mute. And as you're ready, slowly, you can begin to lower your arms. Let your hands, in their own time, there's no rush, come to rest wherever it feels natural for you. And just sense your posture from the inside. There may be a greater sense of your sternum floating above your navel. And after that movement, allow yourself to feel some relaxation, some ease. Imagine, if you like, that all the muscles of your face are now moving into an expressionless quality. The muscles of the face smoothing out. The jaw opening slightly as you feel the weight of the jaw. Feeling the volume of your lips. Is it possible to relax your tongue so thoroughly that it fills your lower jaw? And is it possible to relax the root of your tongue down into your throat? And can you sense right along the occipital ridge, right along the base of the skull, and just imagine here a sense of softening, relaxing, sense of ease. And imagining a sense of liquid relaxation flowing down the back and the sides of the neck and down through the tops of the shoulders. Feel your arms like heavy blankets, heavy drapes, hanging from your shoulders. And as you feel the weight of the arms, just sensing now down through your elbows. Down through the wrists. And sensing the backs of the hands. The palms of the hands. And feeling now the volume and the space inside your hands and fingers and thumbs. And sensing the throat. And the lungs and the heart. And the diaphragm and the movement of the rib cage as you breathe. the lower back and the buttocks. And if you might, imagine about 2 finger widths below your navel, and then in toward the center of the belly here, toward the center of the torso. And over the next 3 breaths, how much more can you relax and soften and feel? And sensing deeper, lower in the abdomen now. What could soften now? The floor of the pelvis and the hip joints. And sensing now down the length of the legs, from the hip joints down through the knees. The kneecaps and the backs of the knees. Down through the ankles. The tops of the feet and the toes. And as if you could sense from the inside, sensing now the soles of the feet and the heels. Sensing now through the whole body, is there anything right now that could soften or relax? And you might again sense the palms and fingers and thumbs soften and feel, and notice here any sense of tingling or pulse, any vibration or subtle energy. Notice all the sounds around you. And notice now if you can sense the breath at the rim of the nostrils or at the septum. Is it possible to feel the breath deep in the belly? And moving now to an anchor of your choosing, to this felt sense in the palms, or to the sounds, or to the sense of the breath inside. And let this, for this next period of time, be your home base, your point of arrival, sensing from the inside. The felt sense, the sounds, the sense of breath. When you notice the mind lost in commentary, lost in a story, take a moment to pause. You might offer kind of an inward smile, for you have just woken out of the trance of thinking. And you are again back in the sense of here and now. And take your time to again soften and feel on the inside. The foundation of this practice is deep relaxation and arrival. And when you're ready, again, sense if you can blend this sense of relaxation with the experience of your anchor, sensing from the inside. If your anchor is breath, you might explore sensing if the length of this next exhalation is shorter or longer than the exhalation preceding. If the anchor is sound, how alive can you be to all the different textures of sound? If your anchor is the felt sense of the hands, how intimately can you soften and receive? You might sense as you continue to relax and receive the moment, a heightened sense of who you are as the observer of what's changing. This seat of the witness. And you might, as it feels right for you, widen and broaden your awareness, opening your sense to this stream or the flow of all that is changing. This quality of non-judging, non-preferential awareness, both relaxed, at the same time alert. And spacious and allowing. What are you noticing right now? Can you let it be? In these remaining minutes, you might like to refresh your practice. Could you again feel your face expressionless? Relax your tongue so completely that it fills your lower jaw. Relax the root of the tongue down into your throat. And can you sense from the inside the palms? And could you in any way soften your belly? And can you feel the soles of the feet and the heels? Over these next 3 breaths, how intimately can you feel your anchor from the inside? Can you sense this seat of the observer, relaxed and alert, aware of what is changing without judgment, without preference? And you might, if you like, let your anchor fall away. What could soften or relax or let go right now? And what could soften, relax, or let go even more right now? You might now begin to lengthen and deepen your breath. You sense the breath on the inside. For this next period of time, again, allow yourself to feel your anchor from the inside. As I breathe in, I'm aware of breathing in. As I breathe out, I am aware of breathing out. awake to the sound vibrations and to the felt sense inside. What is your experience right now? Can you let it be? Now letting your head drift a little bit to the left and to the right with your eyes closed. Take some time to let your body begin to move and stretch. There's no rush, no hurry as we move into our transition. You might like to reach your arms up overhead. Stretch up through the left side, the right side. Oh, let out any sounds. You're on mute. Hopefully you're on mute. And welcome. The other day, I was doing some deep cleaning out in our shed, and I found these packets of iodine pills, radiation pills, which reminded me of a really embarrassing story, which is probably a great way to start this talk. A little shame and humiliation. This talk is about anxiety and fear, and boy, this was a real lesson for me. Approximately 17 years ago, maybe a little bit longer now, I was just stepping out of my position as the president of Kripalu Center in Western Massachusetts, and I just kind of given notice. I had no idea what was next in my life, which is kind of exhilarating, but it was mostly permeated with some tinges of anxiety as to what the heck am I going to do. I had this great plan. One of my plans was I had this great dual sport motorcycle, which I rode everywhere, KLR 650, if anyone's interested. And I had found that you could ride from like Nashville, Tennessee to Oregon, like 98% off-road. That sounded kind of like an interesting thing I might do as a way to kind of clear my head after 24 years of living there. But one thing I had to do was to be a presenter at this conference on yoga and Buddhism. There I happened to meet this co-presenter by the name of Tara Brock, and it was kind of boing, and kind of lights, bells, whistles went off for both of us, and suddenly I found myself contemplating not doing this motorcycle trip across country, but moving to Washington, D.C. I think I've shared before, there are 4 things I swore I would never, ever do. One of them was to move somewhere where I didn't have a job lined up. I would never move to a metro area. I had never lived in one. I would never get married, and I would never, ever, ever renovate a house. So after I moved down to Washington, D.C. without a job, and married Tara, and we renovated her house, I settled into life down here. But before I did, this thing happened. And I'm a real country boy. I've lived on farms. I've lived in the woods all my life. And someone, before I moved down, very, I think out of the good of their heart, sent me this article written supposedly by some former FBI agent, saying that there were 4 nuclear suitcase bombs that were missing. Supposedly it was the Chechens. And this whole theory that these suitcase bombs were planted in cities around the world, and it was affecting politics and how we negotiate. And one of those places where the nuclear suitcase bomb was Washington, D.C. I thought to myself, what am I doing? What am I doing moving to the #1 terrorist destination on the planet? And I was genuinely anxious, and I started genuinely obsessing. What am I going to do? Am I just signing my early death warrant? Something in me obviously wanted to move down, but there was also something in me that was really, really scared. And so much to the point where I was really questioning, should I really do this? Finally, when the anxiety was strong enough, I took some time to kind of investigate it. And I didn't have access to the RAIN meditation technology or anything like that. But something occurred to me in one of my meditations, which was, what do I have control over? And what don't I have control over? And I realized, well, what I had control over was to prepare for nuclear fallout. This is so embarrassing. But what I don't have control over is what's going to happen. So I spent about a little less than $1,000 of my own money buying all the stuff that we would need in case there was some kind of an emergency, which included these radiation pills, along with food supplies and water and a chemical toilet and stuff like that. This is what I had control over. And, something really interesting happened. And this is at least interesting to me, was when I did everything I had control over, I relaxed. And suddenly the stuff that I didn't have control over kind of faded away. It really did fade away. It's one of my first big insights into working with anxiety, and realizing how when we're anxious and when we're fearful, because of our negativity bias, we focus on what's not working. We focus on the unpleasant. We focus on the catastrophizing. When we move out of threat mode and we begin to move into opportunity mode, then we realize we have options. And as soon as I gave myself permission to do what I needed to do just in case, everything kind of shifted. So 17 years later, I'm clearing out this bin, and a lot of this, I had canned goods in there that are so rusted, I have no idea what's in there now. But it was a really wonderful reminder as I've been reflecting on working with fear and anxiety. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the nature of anxiety, and to look a little closer at the cause. Like, what's the cause of anxiety? What's the release of anxiety? And then a practice that can be really, really healing if you find yourself caught in like personal anxiety or just generalized anxiety. Somehow I got an email list. Recently I decided I need to clear out my junk folder. And I got an email list of a particular political party. And I read one of these emails, and I learned a few things. Number one, I learned that there is an evil in our culture right now. And I learned that it's going to destroy everything that is sacred. And they're actually coming after me personally. And there is legislation looming that's going to destroy the fabric of our nature. And if that goes through, we will be crippled beyond all recognition. But the good news is that if I make a donation today, that horrible scenario might change. Does that sound familiar? Have you gotten these? And as I read it, I was so aware of like the semantic structure. It was so boilerplate, but I could still feel the alarm. And I started to write this talk about this one particular political party, but I realized the tactics are exactly the same for both sides. Fear is this incredible motivator. Some people are better at it than others, and I won't say any more about that. But as you know, it's hard. It's hard to move from a place of positivity and vision when we're all inclined toward fear, and we all tend to rally around perceived threats. And what I've found is when you look closer at your fear, and when you look closer at your patterns and your history of anxiety and fear, it can reveal a lot about your character. How much are you motivated by fear in your life? How much are you motivated by threat? And how much are you motivated by possibility and by opportunity? And what I found for myself is that the more familiar I get with how fear constricts me, the more I can begin to get a sense of what lies beyond fear. And maybe it's not even beyond fear as opposed to just sort of being with the fear. I think I've shared before, how I kind of consider anxiety my specialty. I could never understand why I felt so much generalized fear and anxiety. And then I recalled that my mother lost the child before me in childbirth. And then she immediately got pregnant with me. And of course, she was very, very anxious all during the pregnancy. And so I was sort of spawned in this amniotic ocean of anxiety, which totally makes sense for me. And when I read books like The Secret Life of the Unborn Child as to how sensitive and how much we receive when we're in utero, it made all the sense in the world to me. She was so anxious that her doctor would make her, this is way, way back, would make her kind of like relaxation sessions on a reel-to-reel tape deck. So I also got to listen to deep relaxation sessions in utero. So maybe that has something to do with the fact that I lead meditation and relaxations all the time. But when we really look at stress, it of course brings us right back to the four cornerstones of Buddhist psychology, that stress and anxiety and dissatisfaction and unsteadiness and suffering are part of the human experience. They happen. You get one of these portable flesh units, it comes with stress as part of it. The second principle is that anywhere you experience stress or fear or anxiety, it has a root, it has a cause. And you can, if you look closely, you can identify the cause. And that cause, of course, has something to do with holding on. It has something to do with identification, with desire. The third principle is that you can let go. You can release that identification. You can release that clinging. You can release that holding on. And to the degree that you can let go of clinging and let go of desire, you can experience more and more freedom in your life. The fourth foundation, the fourth cornerstone, is that there's a path. There are practices and technologies that can guide you to become more and more free of that sort of endemic built-in stress and anxiety. So fear and anxiety are part of life. They happen to all of us. And there's a cause. There's a classic story told of a man drawn into court in front of the judge, and he's committed this horrible sin. And the judge says, I'm going to give you a choice. One is death by hanging. The other option is this door, and to accept what lies when you open this door. The thief thinks about it, and he chooses hanging. He chooses the rope. So the judge passes down the sentence, and then he asks, so what was the door? And the judge said the door was freedom, just leading to your release. And the judge went on to note how we cling to the familiar. And we all do this. The other classic story is a man falls off a cliff and he's hanging on to this root, just hanging on for dear life, just kind of dangling from this root on the side of this cliff. And there's some people down below that see that he's only about 8 inches off the ground. And he's calling out, "Can anyone help me? Can anyone help me? What should I do?" And the people down below said, just let go. It's going to be okay. Just let go. And they were just chanting, "Let go." And he says, "Is there anyone else who has another opinion?" We hold on for dear life to what is familiar. That sense of the unknown is terrifying. So many of us, we kind of feel stuck at some point in our life, but we're caught in that sense of unable to let go because of what we imagine might happen. So letting go becomes a very, very interesting inquiry. What does it mean to let go? So maybe let's take a few moments for just a short reflection. If you like, you can close your eyes and you might take 3 slow breaths. And you might just take a moment to kind of reflect, kind of go through the files. Can you think of something that you're holding on to right now? It might be a grudge. It might be a judgment of someone. I can make it easy for you. Think of something political. And if you would, just kind of select one thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. In fact, it might even be better just something maybe middling that you're holding on to. And if you would, take a moment now to imagine if you could see it. Can you create a visual image? Are there any sounds? Can you feel what it's like now what it feels like to hold on? Can you locate that inside? And just sense what it's like to not let it go. And you might just sense, is this holding on in some way related to survival or to your sense of identity? Is there something here about holding on because of some fear of losing control? A fear of what might happen if you let go? Is this in some way connected to affection, attention, and love in some relational way? And then you might explore these questions. Could you let it go right now? If you could let it go, would you? And when would you let it go if you could? Is it possible to let it go just 10%? What does that feel like inside? And if you'd like, you might deepen your breath. If you like, you can let your eyes open. You can remain with them closed. I think in many ways, this is kind of the nub of it. When you recognize there's some holding on, what is it that allows us to begin to soften and begin to let go kind of into the mystery? This world that we're living in, this world of human bodies and decaying flesh units, if you want to get real, all of this is subject to change. It's all going to fall away, and it's the very holding on that creates our suffering. It has something to do with the root of anxiety and fear. I always love that beautiful little teaching around Ozymandias, if you recall that phrase. And on the pedestal, these words appear. This is the middle of the desert, the middle of a wasteland. These words inscribed in stone. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. And here we are, feeling ourselves at the center of the universe, King of Kings. All this is going to change. So what is it that's at the root of clinging? What is it that's at the root of the fear and the anxiety, the stress, the dissatisfaction? And it has something to do. The release has something to do around being able to access, number one, what is true. What's really true. And number two, a heart that can hold it. One of the most heartbreaking little stories I've heard is from a good friend who works in hospice. And there was a 97-year-old woman in hospice who was just moaning over and over again, why me? Why me? Reflecting on change, on impermanence, the reality of change and impermanence can really inform our experience of anxiety. This is a cornerstone year for me. In June, I go on Medicare, which is just really, really hard for me to imagine. And yet here I am. I've had a little breakdown in my health, very, very attached to all the different parts of my body. But I have had this little injury that kind of keeps me from doing a lot of what I really love. And there's this just sense of loss and this getting old, things are breaking down. But this reflection on impermanence, this reflection on the inevitable falling away of life as we know it, as hard and as challenging as that is, truly becomes a doorway to freedom, this understanding of impermanence. So if you like, you might just take a moment again to close your eyes. Just this reflection on truth and on the heart that can hold what we discover. You might reflect on someone or something that you have seen aging and getting sick and declining and dying. Just for a few moments, and give yourself some time just to bring into mind someone, something where you have watched the heavenly messengers do their work of sickness and old age and death. And you might gently deepen your breath and just recall, if you can, how you were touched by these messengers. All those that you have seen in your life get old. And all the different ways that you have seen people get sick. And you might recall some of those that you have known that are no longer here on this plane. And you might reflect on the following words. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to get sick. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. Everything in my life, dear and delightful, will one day fall away. I am born of my actions. I am informed by my actions. Everything I think and do, I shall inherit. If you like, you can deepen your breath. And again, you can remain with your eyes closed, or you can open your eyes. These 5 daily recollections can be a very helpful way to remember this powerful teaching of impermanence. As the Buddha said, your house is on fire. This body you are in it's subject to change, and it's going to fall away. And this remembering of what is true, that Arab phrase, the dogs bark, but the caravans move on. Somehow we manage to forget that all things change, that everything we hold dear and delightful will one day fall away. There's a lot to be said about contemplating the source of all anxiety. This sense of who you are as the conditioned self, the product of conditioning, but also this sense of the unconditioned self, of who you are beyond conditions. And I love that little glimpse practice, is to imagine yourself looking in the mirror when you're 6 years old, maybe brushing your teeth when you're 6 years old, seeing your image. And brushing your teeth now and looking in the mirror. And unless you're 6 years old, your body has gotten older. But is the awareness changed in any way? So the bottom line here, I think, is that if you want to explore deep and abiding happiness, this contemplation of impermanence, the contemplation of your death, it sounds macabre, but it becomes a doorway into celebrating the here and now. And so the ultimate source of anxiety, you could say, is the fear of non-existence. this fear of death. And if you think of the opposite of this, or I guess a corollary of this fear of death is the force behind becoming. This force of desire. And indeed, it's said that the whole chain of karma begins with what's referred to in Pali as tanha. Tanha. Tanha refers to thirst. Desire sets the whole chain in motion. Obviously related in some way with this fear of not being, the fear of death. And there are these amazing teaching of these 12 interconnected links that go into the creation of our world. What sets it all into motion, though, is the sense of thirst, of desire. So with desire becomes the fear of loss. And in many ways, you can explore your anxiety through different ways. We've talked about how anxiety and fear can be tied into survival, kind of either your physical death or the death of your self-image. It can be tied into the fear of losing control. It can be tied into the fear of losing affection, attention, and love. But there's also this beautiful teaching of the 8 worldly winds, of how in each of us we have this baked in thirst for 4 things. One is the thirst for pleasure, the thirst for gain, for winning, for being successful, the thirst for praise, and the thirst for fame. To be at the top of your game, to be seen as a winner. The corollary to that is fear, the fear of pain, the fear of loss, the fear of blame, and the fear of shame. When you think of those energies of pain and loss and blame and shame, inevitably they're tied into this core sense of anxiety, fear, dissatisfaction in life. So the bad news is there are 8 of these damn worldly winds that are tugging at you all the time. The good news is it becomes a very interesting question of like, who are you in the absence of desire? Who are you in the absence of pushing away or aversion? Just as you can sense that intense desire for gain, for winning, you can also imagine who you are without that desire. And just as you can feel or imagine that the fear of loss, the fear of loss and blame and shame, who might you be if that wasn't an issue? These glimpses can inform us in some pretty cool ways. So the way out of this mess is learning how to see into the nature of reality. The one definition of Vipassana, which I love, is cultivating penetrating insights into the nature of reality. The second quality is cultivating a heart that can hold what you find. And there's a very, very cool practice that can help you to explore this. We have these 2 wings of practice. What is happening? And can I be with this? Or how does this want me to be with it? This is wisdom and compassion. And this practice comes from the Tibetan tradition, the practice of Tonglen. And it draws clearly on these 2 wings of seeing stress and suffering, but also exploring transmuting it through compassion. Now, there are a lot of ways to practice this. One is using a lot of visualization. And some people find the visualization to be really, really powerful. Other people find it hard to kind of visualize. This is referred to as a practice of sending and receiving. And just to tell you a little bit about it, and then I'll kind of guide you through it. You sort of feel or you visualize yourself taking in stress, dissatisfaction, or suffering. And then as you breathe out, recognizing it, offering compassion and empathy. And quite often you kind of begin with yourself, and just in small ways. You kind of breathe in. You sort of recognize the kind of that claustrophobic feeling of stress and anxiety. And you can visualize this sometimes as sort of like a smoke or like a darkness. And as you inhale, you feel that, and as you hold it, you just sort of sense that you recognize it, and then as you breathe out, you imagine that you're sort of breathing out light, you're breathing out ease. Some of the benefits of this practice is it sort of moves you kind of out of your ego into a sense of self, from selfishness to selflessness. It can increase your capacity to let go. It can expand kind of loving kindness. And it helps to kind of, in some ways, it increases your good karma points by sensing suffering and kind of offering compassion to it. The Dalai Lama said, whether this practice of Tonglen really helps others or not, it gives me a peace of mind. And then I can be more effective, and the benefit is enormous. So again, there are many, many ways, but let me tell you about one approach which I find helpful. And there are really kind of 4 stages. The first is you just sort of rest your mind briefly in a state of openness or stillness, kind of establishing presence. And then you're going to explore, in beginning with self, the sense of like breathing in. And you might feel it as hot or dark or heavy. As you breathe out, imagine kind of cool, bright, a sense of freshness. And you can imagine on the in-breath that you're kind of breathing into the pores of your body. And on the exhalation, you're sort of like radiating out. Now, a few more things, and we're going to do a short meditation in a few moments, or you can begin to sense this for yourself if you like. We're sort of imagining the heart opening and widening. A sense of breathing in and sensing the stress, the anxiety, the fear. And on the out-breath, a sense of like a white light. And it's really helpful to let the in-breath and out-breath be equal. So the next is you start personally. Anything that's painful to you, anywhere you feel stuck. And just to say that as you practice, if you find yourself thinking, I can't do this right, this is really, really hard, or I feel blocked, you breathe that in. You breathe in whatever challenge is there. And then you exhale the sense of light or compassion. And the fourth part is to kind of allow it to be bigger. So I'll say a little more as we kind of move into this. So if you like, we're going to take the next 7 minutes for this practice. If you like, you can close your eyes. You might take 3 slow, deep breaths. And just in these moments, imagine a sense of openness or stillness. Imagine a sense of spaciousness, clarity. You might find it helpful to establish your breath, breathing in to the count of 4 or 5. And breathing out to the count of 4 or 5. And for this practice, you might focus on matching the length of the in-breath with the length of the out-breath. And sensing now anywhere you sense anxiety, Anywhere you sense fear or self-judgment, anywhere you feel stuck, begin to imagine as you breathe in, feeling the texture of this. Some feel this is like a sense of claustrophobia or tightness. You might feel it as hot or dark. And breathe in completely through the pores of your body. And as you breathe out, just imagine you're just sort of radiating out a sense of white light. And take the next few moments to breathe. Breathing in stress or suffering or tightness. Transmuting it with compassion on the out-breath. Sensing in your life anywhere you feel caught, anywhere you feel there's anything between you and feeling free. Imagine you're just breathing that in. And as you breathe out, sending a sense of relief, sensing what it needs. Each out-breath, a wishing well, offering ease, compassion. Taking the next minute or so on your own. Breathing in, I wish to be free from suffering. Breathing out, I send comfort, ease, and happiness. You might imagine on the out-breath this luminous quality of compassion. Imagine as you breathe in any sense of fear or anxiety, you're breathing it into this light inside, and imagine it dissipating, disappearing, being transmuted by the power of clarity, of luminosity. You might very gently let this fall away in these final minutes together here. Imagine a genuine sense of well-being. Imagine yourself at ease and happy. And imagine that quality of ease and happiness radiating out in all directions and touching everyone and everything. Imagine you and every being waking up to their deepest and fullest potential here and now. Imagine all beings in all directions awake and at peace. If you like, you can very gently deepen your breath. Seeing clearly, being able to name fear and anxiety is a powerful step of the process. To name it, to see it. And then to hold it in the heart of compassion is the essence of this practice. And if you were to explore more on Tonglen, we just barely touched into it. It's this very counterintuitive practice of actually breathing in this desire to be free and breathing out compassion and well-being. You can practice this for yourself. You can practice this for all beings. This is the awakening of heart and mind, referred to in many traditions as the awakening of bodhicitta, the awakening of wisdom, and the awakening of the wise heart. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope this has been helpful. May you feel ease and well-being and feel really ridiculously happy for no reason whatsoever. Thank you so much, and blessings to you.